As some of you are learning about new moon and discerning new moon, I just wanted to point out a few things to you. The first is that Strong's H2320 is this word Hodesh. New moon means Rosh Hodesh. It's the head of the moon. And here in Strong's H2320, you see that it means new moon and clarifies that to be the first day of the month of the lunar month. Now, if new moon is defining the first day of the month, that means that it kicks out the previous day and the previous month, and it starts a new day. So whatever time that occurs, you have to understand that we're not talking about 24-hour days. That's not what God is. He never said that a day had to be 24 hours. Therefore, when you're counting down a lunar month, you have to know that we know now that a lunar month is 29.5 days. So you have to be able to reconcile that. Well, when the crescent appears, that begins a new day, a new month, and it kicks out the previous day and the previous month. The old day could have been any number of hours, and the new day could be any number of hours. The next thing I want to show you is 1 Samuel 20, verse 24 through 27. So David hid in the field, and when the new moon feast came, the king sat down to eat. He sat down in his customary place by the wall. Opposite Jonathan and Abner sat next to Saul, but David's place was empty. Saul said nothing that day, for he thought, something must have happened to David to make him ceremonially unclean. Surely he's unclean. But the next day, the second day of the month, David's place was empty again. Then Saul said to his son Jonathan, why hasn't the son of Jesse come to the meal either yesterday or today? Okay, so the first thing you're seeing is that this is the second day of the month. And the first day of the month, they had a feast. They also assembled for a feast on the second day. So we are to observe 2 feast days on the first day and the second day. The next passage I want to show you is 2 Chronicles chapter 3. Then Solomon began to build the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to his father David. It was on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite, the place provided by David. He began building on the second day of the second month in the 4th year of his reign. Now, he would not have begun building on the second day of any month if the second day of the month was not a work day. If it was a designated rest day, he would not have been building. So we know that the second day of the month on which the second festival occurs for new moon is a work day. The next passage I want to show you is Amos 8, verse 4. Hear this, you who trample the needy and do away with the poor of the land, saying, when will the new moon be over that we may sell grain, and the Sabbath be ended that we may market wheat? Skimping on the measure, boosting the price, and cheating with dishonest scales, buying the poor with silver and the needy for a pair of sandals, selling even the sweepings with the wheat. God is rebuking the people for being cheaters, and he's also rebuking them for not regarding his new moons or Sabbaths. Now, why does he separate Sabbaths and new moons? Because the new moon is not a 7-day Sabbath. So when he's referring to a Sabbath, he's usually referring to a high Sabbath or a 7-day Sabbath, but that doesn't mean that new moon is not a rest day and to be observed as a Sabbath. But he specifies that new moon is its own thing. It's not included in this category of a designated 7-day Sabbath. The second thing that you see here is that he says, when will new moon be over that we may sell grain, and the Sabbath be ended that we may market wheat? You can see that inherent in this statement is that new moon is a rest day and Sabbath is a rest day, and they're eager to get back to work and start making money and work by the work of their own hands. Okay, so we know that the first day of the month is a rest day. The second day of the month is a work day. I was speaking with someone last night during New Moon Assembly who is just starting out, just learning about new moon, and wanting to sort of catch up. For those of you who are just starting out and learning about new moon, give yourself a break. Pursue the truth. Read the scriptures, but give yourself a break. It's going to take a minute for you to wrap your head around the way that God does things when you've been living in the world this long, doing the things the way that they do things. Start looking for the moon. The best way to observe the moon is when the sun sets. That's when the moon is most visible. So this is how you can start tracking what phase you're in. The crescent is the new moon, not the dark, and I explained that to you in a previous video. Genesis 1:14 says, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years." The light is marking sacred times, days, and years. The dark is not marking sacred times, days, and years. So it doesn't matter that science says that the dark moon is the new moon because they can see, they can see the light with their technology just because you can't see it with your naked eye, because God did not establish that you would observe the moon by technology or science. He established that you would observe it by what he gave you, which is your eyeballs. Psalm 89:37 says, "It will be established forever like the moon, the faithful witness in the sky." The moon is your witness as to where you are in a given month and how you are to count down from that new moon to your Sabbaths, your holy days, etc. So if the first day is a rest day and the next day is a work day, you know that that's going to be followed up by 5 more work days, and then you're going to have a 7th day Sabbath. And then you're going to have another week, and another week, and another week, 4 weeks in a month. But the first day will be a rest day, and the last day will be a work day. Then you'll start back over with a rest day, then 6 work days and a rest day, 6 work days and and it's just going to keep going like that. But it takes a minute to implement this and to wrap your head around the way that God established things to be, because you've been observing something that is very predictable, that does not require you to have a relationship with what God established, to look up at the sky, to have a relationship with him that way. All you have to do in the world is look at a calendar, and you get spoon-fed when the seasons are. It's predictable when a date is, that's going to correlate to a season. That's not what God established. So no, it's not going to be as convenient, but also God hasn't established things to be convenient. He has established a way for you to continually relate with him so that everything inside of you is oriented toward him. Everything inside of you is constantly aligning yourself to him, conforming yourself to what he has established. The last thing I want to tell you is that as you obey, as you observe what God has established, he's going to bestow more and more wisdom to you. But one thing that I touched on in a previous video is if you start going to teachers who you are not discerning and you start picking up their ideas, you are not acting in single-mindedness. I'm speaking to you based on scripture. Now you go discern that with God, and you go discern whether what I'm saying is true and whether I am true. If you start picking up ideas, God is going to foil what you're doing, because what you're doing is you have not discerned those people. You're not discerning the information. You're being double-minded and placing them before him because really and truly you don't trust him at the heart of it. Otherwise, you'd go to his word and you'd ask him ahead of time, should I be listening to this person at all? If you are double-minded, don't expect to receive anything from God. That's what the scriptures say. Please discern this message with God.